you've just joined in the last minute or two, my name is Fergus Dolan from NALA, and we're delighted to have you for NALA's 39th AGM. Obviously the first one that we've done online. So we hope you enjoyed, and we're going to try to run it fast and efficiently, but surely something might go wrong, you never know. So just before we start, just a little bit of info on upcoming webinars that NALA are running. So this Friday, there's a Learn with NALA webinar for centres. So that's any centre that wants to use Learn with NALA. For those of you who don't know, Learn with NALA is the new Right On. That's from 1 to 2 on Friday. And if you can't join on Friday but are interested, you can go to the NALA YouTube channel. That's NALA Ireland YouTube, and have a look at the recording of that. A few other Learn with NALA webinars are up there. There are videos of them. So then next week, so next Tuesday is International Literacy Day, the 8th of September. So to celebrate or mark International Literacy Day, we've got webinars every day next week. So every morning at 11, we've got a webinar mainly focused on reading. So if you're interested in joining one or all of those, go to the NALA website under upcoming events and click on, have a look at the program, see which ones you're interested in, and we'd be delighted if you join us. They're free. Then on International Literacy Day itself, on Tuesday the 8th, we have a second webinar. We've a webinar on literacy, numeracy and digital skills in the time of COVID and beyond. So that's on from 12:30 to 1:15. My colleague Helen Ryan will be co-facilitating with Pauline Hensey, who's a very experienced adult literacy tutor and trainer, and we're also working with an adult literacy student there to talk about that. That's on Tuesday, so you can also register for that by going on to the NALA website and click on upcoming events. If you can't find any of these events, you can just email NALA info@nala.ie. Then in October, we've got a series of student webinars, and that's on from the week of the 5th to the 9th of October. They're on from 12 to 1 every day. We still are working on those, so more information to follow there, I suppose. And finally, on the 7th of October, we've got an open plain English training session. So that's for anyone who wants to brush up their skills on plain English, and that's on from 10 until 1 on the 7th of October. Okay. Yeah, so just to repeat, if you've just joined in the last 2 or 3 minutes, how to ask a question during this AGM. Beside, if you scroll down to the bottom of your toolbar, near the bottom, you'll see a box entitled Questions / Chat. And if you go to the right of that box, you'll see a little box with an arrow pointing up opposite the Questions / Chat. If you click on that little box with the arrow pointing up, it'll open up your questions box into the center of your screen, and there you can type in your question for us. So as Mary or any of the speakers are speaking, a question pops into your head, feel free to type in your questions. If we get time, Mary will decide how many we've time to get to at the end. If we run way over time, we might have to get back to you, or you can then email your questions to info@nala.ie. Okay, so for today's program, so first of all, Mary Bambrick, the NALA chairperson, will be doing the introduction and welcome. Then Pat Ayton, the honorary secretary, will be doing the minutes from the 2019 AGM. There'll be a finance report from David Heelan, who's the NALA treasurer, and Aideen Morgan, the auditor from Mazars. Aideen's having trouble joining us, so if she can join us, they'll be doing it. If not, David will do the full finance report from 2019. Then Mary Bambrick will introduce candidates proposed and second to fill the positions of chairperson, honorary secretary, honorary treasurer, and member positions on the board of directors. Then we'll have a presentation from Dr. Inez Bailey. You all know Inez, former CEO of NALA, and she's now the CEO of the Centre for Effective Services. So Inez will be chatting about an overview of the NALA work in 2019. And finally, we'll be handing back to Mary again for closing remarks and questions. So I'll hand over to you, Mary. All the best.
Brilliant. Thanks a million for that, Fergus. So folks, look, a very warm welcome from NALA headquarters. We're more used to being in a lovely meeting or a lovely hotel room, having a cup of tea and the chats before and afterwards. So It's a strange one, but we'll hopefully make it interesting for you nonetheless. There's not just myself in Nala headquarters here today. As Fergus mentioned, we have our treasurer, David Heelan, and our acting secretary, Pat Aiton, with us here today. And we will, that's to fulfill our quorum requirements. We needed to have 3 people in the building as listed in the communication around the AGM that went out to you earlier on in the summer. So I suppose to that end, it was important that 3 of us were here from a legal perspective, but I suppose I want to assure you that we're adhering to all the social distancing and COVID guidelines that the team have put in place here. There will be a little bit of, as I was saying to the guys earlier on, Lanigan's Ball. There'll be no singing, I promise, but there will be a bit of someone stepping in and someone stepping out again. So bear with us as we do our handovers. But it's important, I suppose, that you guys can hear us and see us, but that we're keeping our distance when we're making those handovers. So look, I know it's a very, very busy time for students, for educators, for anyone involved in the education world who make up the main cohort of our members. So I really do appreciate the time that you've taken this evening to join us. And I suppose it's important as well to mention the people who couldn't log on and join us this evening. You know, some of our members, some of our adult learners, the digital divide is real, and potentially would have been able to join us had this been a normal AGM in a physical place. And I suppose I just ask us all to be mindful when we're reflecting on the work that we as an organisation are doing, that those people normally would be here to hear us and contribute to us. And I suppose it's just another example of the importance of the work that we do within this organisation. So as I say, one element of this evening will be to reflect on the work that we've done over the last year and have continued into 2020. And the second part or the second element of this evening is to assure you, the members, that we as a board and the work that we do as a board, you know, is underpinned by our good governance framework, that as caretakers of the resources of this organisation, that we're ensuring that it's done right and it's done to the best use of those resources. I suppose one of the things that as a board and as an organisation that we were happy to be able to share with you today was the fact that we were given the NCVO Trusted Charity Level 2 award during August. We got news that work had come through. And, you know, there was a huge amount of work with us as an organisation to do to achieve, you know, to move on a level from level 1. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's kind of like an ISO 9000 quality framework type thing, but specifically for charities. And it's certainly something that we are pleased as a board to be able to share with you, as I say, to kind of give you the assurances that you need that the work that we're doing is built within a good framework, and we're not just meeting standards, we're exceeding them. So I suppose, look, without further ado, we'll get on to some of that good governance piece, and I'm going to pass you over to Pat Aiton, our acting secretary, and Pat is going to bring you through the minutes of last year's AGM to give us all a reminder of where we were and what we were doing when we last did get to meet. So Pat.
Thank you, Mary. The full version of the minutes are available on the website. So the minutes of the 38th NALA AGM. The AGM took place on Saturday, 6th of April 2019 at the Ashling Hotel, Parkgate Street, between 10:30 and 1:30. There were 61 people in attendance. The welcome and opening address was delivered by Nuala Glanton, chairperson of NALA's board. The Standing Orders Committee was elected. The minutes of the 2018 AGM were presented by Sonia Weaver, Honorary Secretary, and proposed and seconded. David Heelan, NALA Treasurer, introduced the annual report and financial statements for the year ended at 31st of December 2018. John Byrne of Brown, Murphy and Hughes, Chartered Accountants and Auditors, presented the audited accounts. The adoption of the 2018 audited accounts were proposed and seconded. The following positions on the board of NALA were filled: Chairperson, Honorary Secretary, Ordinary members on the board. Dr. Inez Bailey, CEO of NALA, gave an overview of NALA's work in 2018 and launched NALA's summary annual report for 2018. Vice President of the European Parliament, Mairead McGuinness, MEP, made a keynote address. Presentation and questionnaire took place on NALA's strategic plan. Mary Bambrick, Chairperson, gave closing comments and paid tribute to the outgoing members of the board. Thank you. I ask for a proposer and a seconder from the room, please. So Mary Bambrick proposed and David Heelan seconded. A quorum of members present unanimously approved the motion. I'll sign off now and I'll hand you over to our Treasurer, David Heelan. Thank you very much.
Good evening all. My name is David Heelan and I am the Honorary Treasurer of NALA since April 2018. I'm not certain if Aideen from Mazars has been able, okay, no, sorry, it's just to fully confirm that Aideen hasn't been able to join us, unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, as Fergus mentioned there earlier. So, I said Aideen, working of Mazars, was to bring us through the financial statements for 2019. But I'll give that overview on that shortly. However, just prior to doing so, I'd just like to give you a brief finance update in advance. So 2019 was the first financial year with NALA's new auditors, Mazars, and I'd just like to commend Aideen, the team in NALA, as I know that a significant amount of work went into completing the statutory audit this year. And as knowledge and experience gained on both sides will yield significant benefits in 2020 and thereafter. In addition to this, there are also two separate internal audit engagements completed during 2019, one on behalf of Solus and another commissioned on behalf of the board, which was completed by Bar Pomeroy. Both resulted in overall very positive reports on the reporting and financial controls, with only a few minor items noted for improvement, which is very good. In addition to the team at NALA securing additional funding from Solus in 2019 and again in 2020, the board has also established a project working group focused on growing plain English income in 2019. And I'm pleased to report that this income increased by around 50% from 2018, while costs actually decreased slightly in the same period. Again, I'd like to commend NALA and the plain English team on efforts in further developing this service. Now, as I said, Aideen is unfortunately not able to connect in relation to give the presentation on the audit financial statements, so I'll just go through those now. As you can see on your screen, at the moment we're looking at the income and expenditure accounts. So I suppose you're probably familiar from previous years in relation to, I suppose, the structure of our financial statements. The majority of our funds are restricted and come from Solus, as you know. Unrestricted funds will be made up of other grant, membership fee income, plain English services we mentioned. As you see, the majority of our funds are restricted, will come from our main source of funding from Solus. Yeah, so you can see the breakout between restricted, unrestricted, and the total for 2019. And then there's a 2018 figure, which is restated somewhat from the 2018 financial statements, which you would have previously seen last year. And this is some of the work that Mazars would have done in relation to their first year taking over the audit. As you see, there's still, in terms of the funding that we're receiving, obviously we're spending out pretty much all of that as we always intend to do. The surplus, which is similar to the surplus that we'd seen in 2018, largely relates to a capitalisation of our website, Learn with NALA, which there's been work going on from 2018 into 2019, would have capitalised more costs during 2019. So it's more of an accounting surplus than a cash surplus. So you would have seen something similar happen in last year's accounts. And I know obviously you have a copy of the cash flow statement as well, which we'll show obviously the cash balance at the end of each respective year, 2018, 2019. As you can see, very little change. We're looking at 2018, 524,000 roughly versus 525,000. So we keep that balance in around similar level, which ties in with our reserves policy as well in terms of what we have to maintain as a minimum in relation to that. And then just on the balance sheet, then like I suppose year to year, you're not seeing any major changes in that. Again, it's really just again on the fixed asset side, which I mentioned earlier, just in terms of capitalising that intangible asset. So you'll see the 92,000 euros in 2018 has increased to about 135,000 in 2019. So I mean, the majority of the movement in the total funds or the total balance sheet figure from 599,000 in 2018 to 649,000 in this year is largely relating to the further capitalization of those costs, which will be unwound over the useful life of the assets. But that again, that also ties in with the surplus that we would have seen in the income and expenditure accounts. So yeah, so that's really I suppose the accounts in a nutshell. I won't try and impersonate Aideen in terms of going through all the sword lingo, but as I said, if there's any questions, obviously submit them, and I'm sure we could cover them towards the end in a Q&A. And then there's just two pieces of business as well that we have to cover as well. So in relation to two motions that we need to pass. So the first being the adopting of financial statements for the year end was 31 December 2019, which is submitted by the directors to this annual general meeting. So I'm just looking for a proposer of statements, which is Pat Ayton, and a seconder, which is Mary Bambrick. And so as a quorum of members present, unanimously approve the motion. And then the second item then is that the company's auditors, Mazars, Chartered Accountants and Statutory Audit Firm will continue in office in accordance with Section 3832 of the Companies Act 2014, and that the directors be authorised to fix the remuneration of the auditors for the year ending 31 December 2020. And again, I'm looking for a proposer, which is Pat Ayton again, and then a seconder, which is Mary Bambrick again. So again, the quorum of members present unanimously approved the motion. So that's all on the finance side. So I'm going to conclude and pass you back to Mary Bambrick. So thanks very much.
Thanks, David, for that. I did think he was going to break into Lanigan's ball there at the end, just to add to the accounts, but maybe next time, David. Okay, so I suppose, look, this brings us on to the next section of our AGM, where we are going to introduce the candidates. So, look, as most of you will be aware, our board is made up from our membership. In the main part, we do from time to time need to co-opt certain skill sets onto the board when needs be. We've done that, similar to bringing David on board over the last number of years in terms of our treasurer. We've had people join with kind of HR skills that we just may not have as a board. But in the main, our membership makes up the board, and I think it's what makes us a strong board. We have, our current board is made up of students, learners, educators, education managers, and people from the corporate world, and that kind of mix of people ensures that every aspect of what we do is covered. We're hearing the voice of people on the ground using the service, managing the services, but we're also hearing kind of the best of what's going on in the corporate world sometimes, and practices and customs and innovations that we can bring into ourselves as an organisation. So there's always that ebb and flow on the board, and this year is no different. This year, the number of nominees was not greater than the number of positions vacant, so we won't be having an election. However, I will bring you through each role, the person nominated, the proposer and seconder. And I know that our comms team are working on a piece in the background that they'll share with you over the next few weeks in building up a bio and sharing that with you. We normally would have had all of the people here present be able to kind of stand up and share a few bits with you. So we'll ensure that we get those bits out to you in some way, shape or form over the next wee while. So to begin with, the nomination for chairperson is Margaret Kelly, proposed by myself, Mary Bambrick, and seconded by Pat Eaton. If we move on to the next vacant role, was that of treasurer. And I suppose this is a role, so you can see there were no nominations received for this vacant position. The board will be co-opting to fill this position with a candidate with suitable expertise and the high calibre of person that this position demands. We've been very lucky to have David the last couple of years, even though he can't sing. But we've been genuinely very lucky that he's brought his skills and his expertise to the role of treasurer and to other areas of the organisation. And just to thank him for that, and to note that we're grateful that David is staying on our audit and finance subcommittee to ensure a smooth transition to the new treasurer, and it's great for us to be able to retain those skills. So thank you very much for that, David. So again, another piece that we'll be back to you on. The next role is that of honorary secretary. So you've already met Pat as acting secretary at the minute, so we were delighted that she has put herself forward, proposed by myself and seconded by David Halen. The next few nominations were for member positions on our board, so non-officer roles. So the first of those being Anna Toohey Halligan, proposed by Mary Hannah Hourigan and seconded by Declan Burgess. The next nominee for a member position on the board is Gwen Redmond, proposed by Kevin Kelly and seconded by Sheila Donnellan. The third nomination for a member on the board is that of Hazel Cryan, and that was proposed by Louise Canavan and seconded by Kevin Kelly. And finally, our fourth nomination for a member position on the board is that of Kevin Kelly, proposed by myself, Mary Bambrick, and seconded by David Halen. So as I said, no election, so just a warm welcome to all of those board members. And I'm going to include in that Kieran Casey, who is a recent addition to our board. Kieran joined us not long before lockdown, so he's had great fun getting used to us from afar. But a warm welcome to all of the returners, people going for a second term on our board and people new to the board. And I do want to say a thanks to our outgoing members, to David, to Louise Canavan, to Noel Phelan and to Liz O'Sullivan, who have given a huge amount of time and shown a huge amount of commitment to the work of NALA and to the work of the board over the last number of years. And we really appreciate the time and the skills given to us. So I suppose speaking of goodbyes, we've had to say goodbye in the last couple of weeks, in the last 3 weeks, to Inez, as you will all know at this stage. So I suppose again, look, I'd like to take this opportunity to really thank Inez on behalf of the board, on behalf of the membership, and on behalf of the staff here for, over 25 years worth of work in the area of adult literacy. Inez has always striven for better, for a better service, better access, better way of doing things, a better way of governing things, something new on the horizon, how to have NALA as a better partner to all of our stakeholders. And she's always done that with the learner in her mind's eye, and the learner in her heart. And I think that is what has allowed NALA, to use that corporate term, we've always kind of punched above our weight and got the best bang for our buck. It's because the learner has always been at the heart, and that is something that Inez has driven through the organisation and beyond. And as I say, I know she's probably sick of me thanking her at this stage. We've had a few different occasions, but I genuinely want to wish you the best in your new role, and give a sincere thank you from, as I say, the board, the staff, and the members who, on a day like today, you would have had many coming up, chatting to you, wishing you well. I'm conscious they won't get the opportunity to do that. I know some have been in contact with you, but genuinely know that there are a body of people out there who are wishing you the best. We have a recruitment campaign underway. We're nearing the end of that, and hopefully we'll have some exciting news for you in that regard in the coming weeks. So look, I'm going to hand over to Inez. As I say, she's only gone a few weeks, so she was here for it all in real terms, and she's going to chat to you about our work over the last, beyond a year now at this stage, a year and a half, and give you an overview of the work the team here have done in the area of adult literacy, right from our picking up the phone and talking people through Zoom calls to, getting our literacy piece in the programme for government. So I won't say any more. I won't take away any of your details, Inez. So I'll just hand over to you now. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Mary, and other members of the board present. It's lovely to be here, even though we're not physically all together. It is lovely to be able to have even a virtual AGM and an opportunity to reflect on the year that was and a little bit of the year that we're still in. So I'm delighted to be here to focus on some of the achievements and the work that NALA took forward in 2019. I'm going to use, I suppose, that graph just to show you how we're bringing the evidence of our work, I suppose, down into individuals, practitioners there, the tutors, students, parents, organisations and policymakers, because these are, I suppose, some of the key stakeholders that we're always working with. And sometimes it is useful in a short way to give a kind of a sense of how many people are we actually reaching, and in what way is that work successful. So if we just move along to the individuals there, I suppose one of the areas of work that NALA has always been, I think, striving towards improving has been the awareness raising, and really that's come a long way in relation to ensuring that people are aware that there are ETB adult literacy services available to them in every local community. So that awareness work in 2019 was actually heavily supported by RTE, who helped us to bring a lot of our advertisement material out to a wider audience. And that resulted in nearly 1,000 calls coming into the free phone helpline. And whilst that's not on the highs of maybe a decade or so ago, I think it relates to the fact that many more people now are contacting us through the website and getting information directly through that means, as well as other social media channels. So the actual phone line itself caters still for a segment of people, and they tend to be people who want to talk to us a little bit more about the opportunities that are out there for them. So nearly 1,000 people made contact with us in 2019 and asked us for information about services. You'll see there 630 information packs were sent out. And that's really kind of giving people more detailed information, because for some people they're going to have a little think about whether or not this is the right option for them, and they might spend some time before they take up that opportunity to join an ETB adult education service. We did a fairly good evaluation of the campaign, and again through an independent company we got results back that we had around 84% success rate in terms of how effective the campaign has been in reaching people who are the target audience for this, ideally people who want to improve their literacy, numeracy and digital skills. So we're really, really pleased with the effectiveness of the campaign. I suppose in addition to that, many of you would know that we do try to get our own press and constantly making contact in terms of local and regional and national media, and you'll see there we had a number of successes across a range of different shows, and all of those give us an opportunity to profile the work and encourage people along the way to think about coming back into education. You'll also see there that during 2019 we had 1,320 people who got their QQI certification between the minor awards and the at level 2 and at level 3, over 4,350 people, awards were given out to the 1,320 people. So a really considerable increase in the numbers of people who are using Right On, as it was called, to get their certification. And as you know, we have moved forward now because in 2019 we started to build a new platform, Learn with NALA, to replace Right On. So a lot of people would have used that final year in 2019 to get their certification. So we were delighted to be able to facilitate them, and also to have re-engagement with QQI ourselves for the new platform, so that we're able to provide that service on an ongoing basis. In pre-COVID times, it probably had a certain appeal to people who didn't have the time to go to services, or needed more time on task than they could when they were actually in their centres. Obviously, in the context of COVID, it's been a very useful resource for people to be able to continue on their learning from their home during a period of interruption where many centres were closed. A lot of our work again in 2019 was supporting practitioners across ETBs and in other settings. So you'll see there 785 people attended their 18 professional development events. Fergus, who would have introduced us to the AGM, would be the person leading a team of others involved in providing those professional development events with the whole range of collaborative partners. The integration work that we've been doing has really been taken forward now by ETBs themselves. So small pieces of training we're still doing to support the practice of integrating literacy, numeracy and digital skills across the curriculum. So that work is continuing well, and I think has really now been embedded in ETBs themselves. The distance learning service, which I suppose in parallel to Right On, is also available to people. It's an over the phone service, and you'll see there that 220 learners received sessions through that mode in 2019. And again, it possibly has come into its own, in particular during the COVID period, because at least it meant that people could continue on over the phone learning if for some reason their own learning had been interrupted. But as I said, pre-COVID times, we did have a certain number of people who preferred to work that way, or really didn't have an option of joining a centre. So it's good to be able to provide those options and to see that the numbers growing. A lot of the professional development work we do is now available on the NALA website. There are videos that are curated there, and people can actually also join the webinars. And all of that wealth of information for practitioners is available on our website. But you can see there that it's obviously getting a lot of traction from practitioners with those kinds of numbers in terms of who's watching it. I suppose the student work in 2019 was particularly impressive. We had a very large number of centres applying for the Student Development Fund, and as a result of that, we dispersed €50,000 into centres to do specific learning activities with students, which resulted in nearly 2,000 students actually getting a beneficial piece of work that they were doing, usually as a group, in fact. And in addition to that, we were obviously able to also see a number of learners coming to our student development days in Dublin and Galway. So the number is really quite high there in terms of reach into learners and supporting their development in a slightly different way sometimes than maybe centres can do themselves. So we're really delighted to be able to provide that support. We've also been continuing to publish distance learning worksheets for learners, and I know some practitioners often use those too, and they're just a very useful resource, as you can see, downloaded over 500 times in the year. Our student subcommittee would be one of the most vibrant committees I think we have. If I say that, the board members won't mind me saying that, I hope. They're a really kind of active group who are particularly committed, I think, to advancing agenda items that they can see will have gains for other students. They want to give back their time for the development of literacy and numeracy, and they met 7 times during the year. There's 16 of the committee members in total, and they really do work really hard, I think, to advance the cause. And you'll just see there we had over 400,000 views of our online promotional videos of students during Literacy Awareness Week. So I suppose one of the cornerstones of NALA's work has been this involvement of students and people themselves talking about their own experiences of having a literacy and numeracy issue. And those videos have been very generously, I suppose, we've been able to produce them very much as a result of the generosity of people themselves sharing their stories and getting some sort of, I suppose, some might say notoriety, but certainly lots of attention. And yet they know that if they do share their story, it's the most likely thing that's going to encourage somebody to come back and maybe take a bit of courage or inspiration from hearing their stories. So they're clearly doing the trick if we're getting that many views in the year. Help My Kid Learn is another website that we support, and I suppose it was very much geared towards people who wanted tips, tricks to support their children's learning, fun ways, and it continues to be a very popular resource for people who get either an e-zine every month, about 1,850, you can see there, get an e-zine sent to them. You don't have to use the e-zine, you can actually just go onto the website and you'll see there we had 220,000 views during the year, and a lot of people, I suppose, being reached through Facebook as well, because this social media is a way that I think a lot of parents will share. If they're using the resource, they'll recommend it to other people. I suppose in terms of organisations during the year, one area where we were continuing to focus was our plain English work. Nearly 800 people took on plain English training during the year. We had nearly 100 organisations use the plain English editing and training service, and it really is growing from strength to strength in terms of we can see more and more organisations, in particular in the public sector, see the value of using plain English in their own work. And as you know, we see that as a core part of NALA's work now to encourage the adoption of plain English, because it benefits us all to be able to read and understand information clearly the first time we get it. We also had our plain English awards sponsored by Mason Hayes Kern, and 120 people from 50 organisations attended that event. It's a very nice event. We're also continuing to work in the health sphere, on the health literacy front, and one piece of work we're doing is supporting pharmacies and general practices, so your GP, for example, to actually go through an audit and see how clear they're communicating with their customers, patients, and if they do really well on the audit, they get a crystal clear mark. So again, we have a sponsor there with MSD who's assisting the cost of this work to encourage pharmacies and general practices to go forward to get the crystal clear mark. Did a lot of work during the year on health literacy, specifically in terms of different organisations, both from the health provider side, HSE for example, but also healthcare practitioners and the pharma industry as a whole. So there's clearly a growing interest in the area of health literacy, and the work that we're doing there is trying to, I suppose, spread the word of what health literacy is, how it can be useful and adopted in organisations, brought into research, for example, and it's an integral part, we believe, in improving public health outcomes in Ireland. On the policymaker front, we made a number of submissions during the year, and I suppose overall a lot of 2019 was spent finalising a range of documents that we were putting together to back up our call for a new 10-year whole of government strategy for literacy. So a lot of work was done putting together those reports, building up, I suppose, our advocacy work, working with politicians, asking them to support our cause, in the full view that we would be having a general election, we imagined at some point. Obviously it happened in early 2020. So a lot of work was done in 2019 in preparation for that general election, getting material evidence-based reports ready for why there needs to be a new strategy, and indeed garnering support from politicians across all parties and none to support our cause. The membership went from strength to strength also. Those of you will remember we opened up the membership to a free membership category, and we did that very much to, I suppose, bring about a situation where we're growing support for the organisation in terms of people who want to support the cause, as opposed to just from a monetary point of view. I think our aim was to not lose any money by doing this, so we actually haven't lost any income. The income is still relatively steady, but we have actually gained more free members, and they tend to be students in particular and individuals who want to support our cause. So we're glad to see the increase from 2018 into 2019. And the membership, as I mentioned there, is made up often of students, but we also have corporate members and people. Obviously, the education training boards are one of our key membership organisations and have been for many years. But we also increasingly see individual organisations like literacy centres, youth reach centres, but also traveller organisations, probation projects coming into membership as small centres, as well as the larger corporate ones. So we're always keen, I think, to grow the membership, both from the perspective of reach, and it's a kind of a unifying way maybe to bring together practitioners and providers and those who have an interest in the subject to come together through the membership. And it's a good way for us then to be able to serve everybody from one core grouping. I suppose, yeah, looking ahead, 2019, although a really, really good year, we were very much geared into trying to make headway in 2020 with both the election, as I mentioned, but also I suppose we knew we needed a new strategic plan, and we were conscious that SOLAS, working with the Department of Education Skills and other stakeholders, was developing a new further education and training strategy. So there was a kind of it was good timing for us all to work together to see what would be the new development for improving adult literacy, numeracy and digital skills, in particular in the new FET strategy, and it is there, and we were delighted to see it when it was published over the summer. But also to increasingly bring literacy, numeracy and digital skills into healthcare and community development settings, to see it as something that needs to be brought to where people are. And if people are in these settings, then that's where we need to bring the learning to them. And then finally, I suppose, to ensure that we were continuing to bring research and innovation to bear in this area and learning more. So our new strategic plan, already now nearly whatever we have, 8 or 9 months under the belt already, is going really, really well, working in a very streamlined way, I think, with the wider FET strategy. And I suppose maybe on a final note, from my own perspective, we did have the good fortune of having a meeting at the end of July on my last day in NALA with Minister Simon Harris, who had been appointed the new Minister for Further and Higher Education. So it was a great opportunity to present to the Minister the entirety of the research work that we had done to back a call for a new whole of government 10-year strategy. So the meeting went extremely well. He was very, very appreciative of the work that has been done to date, and very keen to get behind a new strategy going forward. So certainly it was an excellent way to conclude my career in NALA, to have such a positive response from the Minister. And I do believe we are going to see and hear about the developments that he's going to back, and NALA will be very much, I think, a key player in relation to delivering on that front. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening. It's been a real pleasure to be with you, even though I'd loved that we'd all been able to meet up as normal. However, it is great at least to get the opportunity to present the year's work to the members, and also to give an update in terms of what's happening in 2020, an unusual year on a whole load of fronts. But certainly from my point of view, great to be able to deliver that piece of work to you, and to say thank you very much. Enjoyed working with the members and the various stakeholders over the years. It's been a real pleasure, and I don't want to say any more other than it's been a real joy. And I'm going to hand back to Mary Bambrick, who is going to take us through some closing points and questions. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks a million for that, Inez. And to say we literally had her work until the last minute of her time in NALA. Literally the afternoon she was due to finish, she got the slot with the Minister, and certainly didn't turn it down. So genuinely a big thank you for the last 25 years, and as I say, making those last couple of hours very much count as well. So I suppose I'm looking at the time, Fergus, and we probably have time for a question or two. I'm not sure if you've received any in through the chat function, or will we keep going?
So far we have no questions. As a result of what's gone on, if anyone has a question, please type it into the box with question/chat. So
no, well, that's fine. Well, look, I'll start wrapping up. If anything comes in the meantime, or indeed if any of you kind of after today, as Fergus mentioned, look, this session has been recorded. It'll go up on our YouTube channel. It'll go up on the website as well. So if I'm kind of looking at it over the next couple of days, any questions come to mind, info@nala.ie, throw in the questions and we'll try to get back to you on all of that. So I suppose, look, just to kind of finalise things then, to close things off, look, on a personal level, as you'll have seen there from the ebbs and flows of the board, my time at the board is due to end as well. And I just want to say a sincere thank you to both board members, but the entire NALA staff, and the membership over the last number of years. And I'd encourage members, any of you watching here today, or when the next AGM comes around, you know, we need good people on the board. We're a hard-working board. There's no golf trips, but there's lots of enjoyable meetings where we get lots of work done. I genuinely would encourage anyone who has a voice or has a skill to give to do that. You won't regret it. I suppose, look, guys, we're in strange times. We're in, you could say, exciting times in some ways. There's uncertainty, there's opportunity out there for us in the education sphere. You know, I know from my own students in Coolock and Jarndale Adult Literacy Service, you know, we've had the range of students who, you know, students who really embraced distance learning, blended learning, have been able to try things or try their hand at things that they maybe wouldn't have done 6 months ago. We've also had, you know, I've also had the other end of the spectrum, students who've really struggled, learners who've really struggled. You know, the digital divide is very, very real on the ground. You know, as I mentioned at the start, we were all able to log on here this evening and get going on it. Not everyone has that in terms of skill levels, devices, broadband availability. There's a huge range of issues. And I suppose, look, it just speaks to the importance of the work that Ina has referred to there, and this idea of kind of that whole of government approach. You know, we need to go to the people. If your need is, I have to do an interview on a Zoom call, and how do I do it? We need to make sure as adults who have skill deficiencies, there is somewhere for them to go to. They know they're not alone. You know, some of the papers that we released there during the summer that spoke to that whole of government approach, you know, talk to the fact that literacy makes sense, it makes economic sense, but it also makes societal sense. You know, and it's important that we're working not just within the education sphere, but right across society, right across government, to ensure that people who need to get those skills as an adult can get them. And I suppose that we're measuring those impacts correctly. I suppose, look, it really comes back to, you know, we want our economy to thrive, we want our society to thrive. We want our communities to thrive. But I suppose, look, as a tutor on the ground, a lot of it comes down to, we want individuals. There are people here at the end of this computer, or there are people out in the communities and society and our economies who need skills, who need to be able to, you know, use that smartphone that the grandkids handed to them and then ran away because they didn't have time to set it up. You know, or the person already in employment who's been handed a smartphone and has been told we need to do everything over email now or over Zoom or whatever. You know, there's a plethora of needs out there, and hopefully, not hopefully, I know the team here within NALA, I know the membership are behind it, and I know the board are behind the next stage of our work over the next year, and furthering those key pieces that Ines has outlined. So look, I'm going to wrap it up there. As Fergus mentioned at the start, look, International Literacy Day is next Tuesday. We've lots of things running online. We'd love if you could join us. And as I say, look, all the details are there. If you need to get in touch with us for whatever reason over the coming weeks or months, choose a channel and give us a buzz or drop us an email. All right. Thanks again for taking time out of a busy time in your year. And we really appreciate your attendance.
There are no questions, Mary, but quite a few people have said
Okay.
good luck and all the best, and thank you to you and Inez for your work. So we see one from
Brilliant.
Anne-Marie Foley there, but a few other people have said it too.
Lovely. Thank you very much.